Welcome to my channel, Life and Living. Today my guest is Amit Chatterjee.
Hello.
Welcome,
Sunetra.
Amit. Amit Chatterjee is a life coach, management mentor with decades of experience working with corporates. Sir, happy to have you here on my show.
It's my pleasure and it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Sir, since we talk about management and management coach, management mentor, life coach, in very simple word, I'll ask you, what is management?
That's a tough one, I would say, to keep it very simple, but I will try and make my best efforts on that. Well, first of all, see, management is about managing your different relationships, managing your resources, including time, including knowledge, and to achieve an objective that you have. And normally, of course, most of us, as normal human beings, we have not one, but multiple objectives. Objectives that are important to us for our personal space, objectives that may be very important for us in our workspace. And so, therefore, for me, management is something that is real life, and it is applicable for everybody and anybody, at least as an adult who is functional in today's world, irrespective of age so much, barring, of course, people who are just starting their life in the workspaces.
People talk about work life balance and family balance. Tell me how one should balance between two.
Let me put in a caveat that to speak about anything is always much easier than having to do it. So, with that caveat in place, work-life balance is an objective which should be, important and very significant for almost everybody, because we need that balance. Otherwise, we are either stepping too much into the workspace, or I would not use the word life. I'll come to that why on the personal space. So the way life has at least taught me over the years, I would say if one looks at work as a subset of life, instead of putting work on one side and life on another side, if you think of work as a subset of life, then you have to have some space between your work and the superset, which is the life. If you draw two circles, one is a smaller circle and a bigger circle, the bigger circle being the life, and inside that you have a smaller circle which is work. So there's some space in between. Now, the moment we do not have that space, we do not have work-life balance. So I have probably written about it and in the past quite a few times. So I used to put in a simple equation that work plus X is equal to life. Now your focus should be on what is this X. Because work everybody has to do anyway. Okay? Even when you are starting your career, say in early 20s, you have to work. And when you're young, your work can be almost equal to life. That means you don't have too many things beyond your work. But as we go ahead in life, and not only when you become probably as old as I am in mid-60s today, but even when you are 30, 40, 50, etc., okay, your work still is very important, because work is where you apply whatever you learned in your life and you also get value against it. And that's what gives you a living, like your channel's name, Life and Living. So, but then to have a life and not just the living part of it, which is related to what you do work and how you get compensated, what you get out of it, you need to have something which is this X factor, I would say, which is work plus this X is equal to life. So, give you an example. Somebody who is very busy working, let's say, today's world and in India, say as a design engineer in an automobile company. Now, obviously, this person has to be very good and very well educated in automobile design. He or she should know everything about all the tools, technologies, or systems, or processes that are necessary to do design in an automobile space. But should she do only that? Obviously not. She has a life beyond this work part of it. Now, if this person is just 25, let's say, started maybe 1 year into the job, he or she is always thinking about, how she should perform as best as possible in the company or in the job that the person has. But then yet, even this young person goes back home, okay, and before sleeping has some time. She may be reading a book, she may be practicing the violin or the sitar, she may be, going out to do some sports, playing badminton or swimming or going to the gym or whatever it is. So all these things that you do outside your work, okay, is this X factor. Now imagine a person who is a parent, okay, and maybe around 40 years of age or 45 years of age, having, young children, and they have to go back home. They also have to take care of the children. And now there's not many families live with their parents. In my time, we used to live also with our parents. So, but they do take care. They call up their parents even if they are 2,000 kilometers away or 14,000 kilometers away. Okay, so that is all those things you do, which is that X. All this basically accumulate as what I would refer to as the X factor. Now, all these things that you do as the X factor outside your work, if these are some things that also gives you joy, these are some things that you have done out of making a choice, not because it is just your duty or responsibility. In Hindi or Bengali we call it daitvas and kartavyas, right? So life beyond the work is also having a lot of portion, which is the word
Duties,
daitvas.
we call this duties.
Yeah, I mean, in English, I find the word duty is a little bit a lesser version of kartavya, for example. I think kartavya is a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit bigger. Similarly, daitva is not just responsibility; it's also a little bit more, because there is this element of relationship probably that comes in the way we understand the words daitvas and kartavyas. So anyway, but there are certain daitvas or kartavyas you do or you have to do, you must do, but you may not still enjoy it. Without getting into specifics, right? I'm sure with your experience in life, you would relate to that. But then you have, other than daitvas and kartavas, many other things, as I said earlier, whether you are playing a violin or learning swimming or going to the gym or painting or whatever you're doing, which you may enjoy. So all these things that you do, whether those are things that you must do, some parts of your daitvas, kartavyas, whether there are things that you like to do, and you do actually, because not many people always end up doing what they really like to do. And there are things that you choose to do, okay, because you want to do it, okay, and that's probably one of the best things to do actually in this X factor part of it. So when you add all these things in this X factor, as I referred to, then you get work plus this X factor is your life. Now, if your X is very small, very tiny, okay, and becomes minimal, your work is equal to life, and then you don't have a balance. So what balances work in the superset of a life is the X factor. So to have work-life balance, one has to invest going forward in different kinds of things that you like to do or you choose to do, for example, not just what you have to do or what you must do.
Nowadays, we need management everywhere, every step in life. Without management, we cannot do anything, right? Somebody is, who is in a job, or somebody is running his own business.
Sure.
Tell me how the management studies will help these young generation.
Well, it's interesting that your first part of your question, I could immediately align with, that yes, management is quintessential at every step or every stage in life. But when you bring in the topic about management education, then I must share my views, which life has taught me. Yes, we do refer to management education, which is normally the MBAs that younger people go for. Unfortunately or fortunately, I never had an MBA in my education, but I did have some management education pretty late in my life. Let me touch upon this management education bit first, and we will come back to application of management in every stage and step of life later. So the management education, which is the MBA, that has been there for a very, very long period of time, okay, if you actually look at it, MBA does not have any word called management in it. It stands for Master of Business Administration. So what people learn in an MBA is about business administration, not management.
True.
Yes, today, the best of business schools, they're called business schools, they're not called management schools, by the way. Okay. Best of business schools have made consistent efforts over the last at least 10, 15 years to bring in some bit of management education over there. Now, let me kind of differentiate between what is management education and what is business education. So in an MBA, you learn about different kinds, different parts of any kind of business, whether it's production management, whether it's operations management overall, supply chain, IT, human resource management, etc., okay? And that prepares the younger people very well, for sure, to go and start working in a business organization, because every business organization has all those functions. They're called functions in a business organizations. In the old language, you may call it departments. Nowadays, for many years, we call it functions. So you have a marketing function, you have a sales marketing function, you have finance
yes,
as a function, you have maybe engineering, R&D, etc., production, etc. So this education is very important for younger people to know the structure of a business organization and what happens in these different functions in a business organization. And this is very important. This is very helpful for younger people to start working in a business organization. So this is a very good business education, okay? Now, as opposed to that, or rather in addition to that, what is management education? When these young people, I was also one of those young people, yes, some years back, for sure. So speaking in first person, when I started working in an organization, I had some understanding of how business works, but no practical understanding, right? I had some theoretical understanding if I had an MBA. Now, when I start working, I have to do many other things other than only what I have read in the books as production management or supply chain management or IT management, etc. I have to actually work with people, okay? And there are three sets of people that anybody has to work in when you work in an organization. You work with your team members, okay? You work with your peers. You also work with your management, your bosses, for example, right? Now, how do you manage the relationships with your team members, your peers, and your management is what is management.
That is very important to know about the relationship between the management people, between the team members.
The point about managing the relationship.
Right.
The point is that is what is management. That's where also the other buzzword comes in. That's what your own leadership. How do you lead yourself? Okay, how do you behave in certain situations, in certain contexts? How do you still manage to achieve your goals that you have when you work with different kinds of people? So that's all in the domain of management, for example. And that's not exactly what you learn in an MBA education. Okay, MBA is not about that. Yes, a little bit maybe in the organization behavior, in the HR that people learn. You learn a little bit about human psychology, etc., and all that. But the real learning about relationship comes through practice. When you have to work with, let's say, one of your team members, in old-fashioned language, we used to call them juniors. Now today, a younger person in your team is not somebody who is just going to obey your commands. Those days are gone, thankfully, many years back. We are out of the medieval culture in at least organizational relationships. But yes, individuals, we go back to our homes where we still carry the remnants of those, medieval relationship styles, that I'm a senior, I'm your elder, you don't talk back to your elders, you don't argue with them, etc., etc. But these habits then we carry into our workplaces. And because we are human beings, we are basically bundles of habits. And when we carry these habits into workplaces, that is where we start learning management. Does it work? For example, I may be used to this habit that at home I cannot talk back to my father or my mother or my elder brother or elder sister even, because that's the culture at home. But at the workplace, somebody who is my team member, who is a younger person, and I'm his or her, let's say, manager or a team leader, he will argue back with me, no, Amit, I don't agree. I have another idea about doing this. And that's the right way, that's the best way. Because I want to pick their brains, I want to use their ideas. I want them to actually do what they really believe in. Now, this is very, very different to the culture I bring from my home, where I'm not supposed to talk back to my elders. So this is where you learn management, when you actually kind of, learn over some time to park your practiced habits in which you have grown up back at home, and you develop new habits of dealing with people who may be your managers, maybe your peers, or maybe your team members. So that's where you start learning management. Of course, what helps in that is a bit of theory, for sure, which you can learn on your own, or there are management educations also, like what is probably called today more as executive education, whereas you would know that best of business schools like the IIMs or the ISBs or even a lot of others, and they have developed separate programs for executives who have minimum 5 years of experience or something like that, because after that 5 years of experience, they come in and they have already experienced those challenges, and some of them have already done well out of their own, I would say, normal
Ideas.
intelligence.
Yes.
Okay, and also a lot of these younger people, they read a lot. Not only reading, the shortest version of communication that one is used to with your WhatsApps and Instagrams and Twitters, but they actually read also books, because without reading theory, you can't see the validation of what practice teaches you. So that is why executive education is more of management education, but MBA is not management education. So I hope I answered that part of it, and hope it clarifies for your audience.
Yes, sure. I got a very valid, thing today from you. Like, over the years, we have been practicing something. When we go out and in our offices with our colleagues and mates, so something different, and which is a part of management, it is very helpful for the younger generation and for even for the older ones also, because
It's for everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Here I want to know another thing from you. Somebody who has not gone to a business education or a business school, but he or she is an entrepreneur, and how he or she is going to, implement management in his own company without going to a business school, without having a degree, which is an executive degree. So tell me something about it.
How old do you think, Sunetra, the MBA education is? See, the MBA as an education was started way back in 1910 in the US, 65 years old. Because that is when in the US they realized that, the rapid industrialization that was happening because of the Europeans basically having migrated largely from Europe to the US, and then to set up these industries, they also were scaling up and stuff like that. So they realized that they need this kind of a business education. So MBA is actually, from 1910. So it's a long time back. There's nothing new about it. Okay, one. But even older than that is business. You ask the question about entrepreneurs. Okay, in our country, we know the names Birlaji and Saksarias and the Tatas. They were all big industrialists, but they all started from scratch, obviously, because no business starts from 100 on a scale of 0 to 100. They all start from zero. There's a very, very famous story about G.D. Birlaji, Ghanshyam Das Birlaji, who is said to have, started what in the Marwari community is called the Parta system. I was told this story by a professor when I had a friend of mine. that Bilaji would, drive out of his cement mill in the evening after all the mill is shut down for the day. And he would ask his driver to stop the car at the main gate of the factory before exiting. He will roll down the window and he will ask the sentry who is sitting there on watch, "Aaj kitno truck gayo?" How many trucks passed by today? And the sentry will tell him, "Hukum, aaj 48 truck gayo." He will roll up the window, go home, pick up his old phone, on the cradle, right, and call his Munimji. "Do truck kam kyun gayo?" Because the target was 50 truck jana chahiye. And he knows in one truck there are so many cement bags. Each cement bag is 20 kilos or whatever number of kilos it used to be. And he knew that per 1 kilo he makes so much of profit. So he could compute that today's KPI was 2 trucks short. That means each truck having, say, 200 bags and each bag having 20 kilos, so much of profit is lost. So he's asking his Munimji, "Aaj 2 truck kam kyun gayo?" So this is management, business management. And this is much older than even MBA. So entrepreneurs, to learn management, they learn through I would say, the pulls and pressures of the business. They understand that there has to be cash coming in, okay? You have heard of the term they call cash is king. So in business, it is not only, how much sales you do or how much production you do, it is about how much cash. Rokdo kitne aayo? Okay. How much cash have you got in on a daily basis from your business? So this is where you start learning business. Now management comes in when you have to run the business not on your own alone. That means you as Bilaji or the entrepreneur is not the only person who is taking all the decisions. When your business scales up, both horizontally as well as vertically, that means horizontally I mean when you have different kinds of things happening in your business, and also when you are scaling up vertically, that means you are also growing the business in numbers, then you cannot handle everything yourself. Then you need to find people who have to not only handle the daily process, but also take decisions. So that is what is about scaling up, as they say today. For example, the phrase startup. Okay, startup is today's name for entrepreneurial businesses, but entrepreneurial business is donkey centuries older than today's startup, so-called. There's nothing new about a startup. All businesses were startups. Now, the point is that when a startup becomes a scaled-up business, the difference is that the entrepreneur who started the startup is not the only person taking decisions. That's where management comes in. Because you have to learn what kind of people you have to recruit, not only about the education, but maybe even the experience, the knowledge, and most importantly, the attitude, the mindset. Because what makes one person different to another person, having the same education, the same practical knowledge, theoretical knowledge, is the mindset and the attitude. And this is not something you learn out of books. This you learn out of life, out of practice. When I made a mistake by recruiting somebody and then seeing, oh, this guy was so good, the CV was fantastic, everything was fine, but then this person cannot work with his peers. This person goes and starts arguing with, maybe the finance guy, or maybe the design guy, or maybe the sales guy, or the marketing guy, and then there is chaos over there. But it has nothing to do with his formal education in whatever he or she is working in. Okay? So that's where management starts coming in. And yes, entrepreneurs have to learn it, and successful entrepreneurs do learn it, for sure. But in already scaled up organizations, these things have already set in place. There's another aspect to both managing business or management overall is the what I call the explicit side of running a business, which is your processes, the systems, the tools, the technologies that you use in running any kind of a company. Now, when an entrepreneur is starting, obviously even these things There may be some tools, there may be some technology, but there may be very, very small amount of process or system being used. But when you scale up, you need more processes, you need more systems. And that's when you need, again, experienced people to bring those things in. But then you need management and leadership to take the next levels of decisions. Because only the process or the system cannot be about decisions that you have to take on a day-to-day level, or even sometimes to change strategies, to do something new, to bring in innovation and development, etc. So people learn for sure, but it's not that you can learn only through having a business education from a nice business school or management education from an executive education. I mean, most of the most successful entrepreneurs worldwide who are even today revered by anybody and everybody, they hardly had any business education or even sometimes even proper education. So education per se is good, is necessary, but that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you need. You need common sense, okay? You need the curiosity, you need the attitude to learn, you need a mindset to ask questions without having self-doubt, without losing your own self-esteem. Okay, these are very important things about
Foresightness.
foresight. Yeah, but foresight itself is something which comes through experience and time. Okay, that you put into a certain topic, into a certain domain. I'm not passionately involved in something in the domain. I will not obviously have any foresight about that. But wherever I am involved in, I'm putting my mind to it. I'm putting my passion to it. Okay, I have goals and objectives. Then only I will look beyond, and I will then probably get some foresight. It's not something related to the intelligence. It is related more to the practice and amount of mind time, amount of investments that you have, not just financial investments, but also your mind and mental investment, your commitments toward it, for example, your sense of belonging, for example. So all these things gives, all those good things that we expect or hope people to have.
सर हमें प्लीज़ बताइए, ये जो मिड 30s 40s के बीच के जो जनरेशन है, हस्बैंड वाइफ मोस्टली वर्किंग मिलते हैं. अगर फैमिली भी हो गई है उनकी, तब भी हम देखते हैं कि बहुत स्ट्रेस में होते हैं. एक तो वर्क प्रेशर, वर्क लोड, आई डोंट नो, मे बी आप लाइफ कोच हैं, आप मैनेजमेंट मेंटर हैं, आप बता सकते हैं कि व्हाई द स्ट्रेस.
इसके पीछे कारण तो बहुत सारे हैं. आज के पॉडकास्ट में हो सकता है इट विल बी डिफिकल्ट टू कवर एवरीथिंग, बट लेट मी जस्ट कलेक्ट अ फ्यू थॉट्स विच कुड बी सिग्निफिकेंट. उसमें ऐसा है कि जैसे आपने जनरेशन की बात की जो 30s 40s में है, एक ख्याल ये भी आता है कि 30s 40s में तो हम लोग भी थे, उससे हमारे पहले भी हमारे जो एंसेस्टर्स थे वो भी थे. तो व्हाट इज़ डिफरेंट फॉर टुडेज this generation which are in 30s and 40s as compared to earlier? Let me address that. So one or two things which is very, very different is, number one, आज के जो 30s 40s में है, ये लोग ज़्यादातर अपने एजुकेशन और नॉलेज के बदौलत जो नौकरियां होती है या जॉब्स होते हैं उसमें काम करते हैं. और इससे पहले के जनरेशन में, जैसे मेरे जनरेशन में, नॉलेज वाज नॉट द फैक्टर, एफर्ट्स वाज मोर सिग्निफिकेंट. हमको बैठ के मोस्टली जॉब्स वर टेबल जॉब्स बिकॉज द इंडस्ट्री वाज वेरी स्मॉल at that time. So today most of the people, they work in the industry or the services industry. These kind of jobs were not there. Today to have jobs, you need a certain kind of knowledge, which is two parts. One is that what you learn out of formal education, and one is that what you learn through having to work in a certain organization, in a certain company. Because most of the people work in some companies or another. So ये जो नॉलेज जो है, एक्सप्लिसिट नॉलेज जो ज़रूरत है, ओके, काम करने के लिए, ये नॉलेज बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है. एंड द पेस एट विच दिस नॉलेज कीप्स ऑन चेंजिंग, दिस ऑल्सो इज़ वेरी हाई. So there is a constant pressure if I have to work today in any organization, that I have to keep on topping up my knowledge. I cannot simply bank upon what I know. I have to keep on adding new skills, new tools, new certifications. I have to keep on retraining myself. So this itself is a huge difference between the earlier generation and today's generation, particularly people in 30s and 40s who are also family men and women. The second big difference is that as opposed to, again, let's say the older generation, जैसे आपने कहा कि husband wife दोनों ही, they're working couples, and obviously they also have children. इससे पहले एटलीस्ट हमारे देश में, इवन बड़े शहरों में जो है, normally the husband would go out to work and the mother will manage the home, manage the husband also, for example. And that has changed. Today, both the husband and wife, the spouses, they go out for work, they come back home. Okay, the child is growing up, maybe in some caretaker or carer is there. नहीं तो वो सारा दिन कहीं स्कूल में, कहीं क्रैश में एक्सेट्रा. ये जो चेंजेस हुए हैं, इसके लिए नेचुरली स्ट्रेस तो होता है, क्योंकि आफ्टर ऑल एक चीज़ जो चेंज नहीं हुआ है, विच इज़ व्हाट आई वुड कॉल इज द नंबर ऑफ वेकिंग आवर्स दैट ए ह्यूमन बीइंग हैज़ इज द सेम. Okay, so we can't increase the number of hours in a day. And therefore, in the same amount of time that you have to pack in all these things which are additional. You have additional work, you have additional responsibilities to manage yourself, not only at home but also at workplaces. You are still a mother or a father. You're also a son and a daughter, for example. The third thing that has changed also is that in the earlier generation, there used to be another elder generation living with you, your parents. Today, most of the younger couples, like 30s and 40s, they are living on their own. They have, because of their work, they have come out of their home, towns or cities, wherever they were, and so they have to manage their home part of it, the family, etc., on their own, and that is also different. Of course, they have certain things which the earlier generation didn't have, other than the knowledge part which they use for their work for sure, but they also have a little bit more money. Yeah, okay, it's the middle class of today and the middle class in my generation is a very big difference, for example, as when you think about the surplus incomes. So today people have relatively surplus incomes, and these surplus incomes is what, you see that we have malls at every corner, we have restaurants, we have pubs and bars and, what do you call them, resorts. So on all weekends around most of the big cities in the country, most of these resorts are booked, because this is the generation which goes out. Okay, of course they go out probably with this thought that this will be relaxing and they can, kind of re-energize themselves and come back and hit their workplaces again on the Mondays. So there is a huge difference that has happened, that has come in place in the lives of people which are today working in 30s and 40s. So this leads to the stress for sure. And there is another aspect which I would add to this, which is about expectations, aspirations. Now, when in the earlier generation, when your cloth was small, naturally you used to cut your coat. There's an old saying, as you know in English, that you cut your coat according to your cloth. Now, today the cloth has become a little bit bigger. You still need probably a coat for which you don't need all that cloth, but what you do with the spare cloth? So you go to the malls, you go to the pubs, you go to the restaurants, you go to resorts, you take vacations, holidays. So all these things are adding to your mental occupation. And the fourth or fifth factor that comes to my mind, which is a cause for more stress, also is that the amount of time people spend in communicating with another person has reduced. Now, there are two factors. One is, of course, people are busier because you have to go to work. right? And both the husband and the wife. But on the other side, you have this fantastic invention called the smartphone. Now, the phone may be smart, but I think people who have to use this smartphone are not very smart, because we are continuously using this for not as a phone, but for looking into this message or that message on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and whatnot over there. So there is constantly our minds are occupied with communications which are very, very insufficient. These are only messages, as they are called, right? Okay. They are basically more transactional than relationship oriented. And when we spend more and more time in transactional communication, we obviously become very poor in having relationships. And when relationships become fragile, कमज़ोर पड़ जाती है, तो उसमें नेचुरली स्ट्रेस और बढ़ता है. पहले के ज़माने में, और ये ज़माने का दोष नहीं है, इंसान का भी दोष नहीं है, मगर ज़माना पलट गया है. तो पलटने के साथ साथ जो ज़िंदगी जीने की जो तरकीब है, वो भी हमको, अभी आपका चैनल का नाम है लाइफ एंड लिविंग स्टाइल को हमें एडजस्ट करना पड़ता है. करना चाहिए या करना होगा, वो तो एक इंडिविजुअल के ऊपर है. मैं आपको तो नहीं कह सकता हूँ कि आप इस तरीके से अपनी ज़िंदगी जिए, आप भी मेरे को नहीं कह सकते. मुझे ही चुनना पड़ेगा कि मैं अपनी ज़िंदगी किस तरीके से जीऊँ. तो इसलिए ये सब जो फैक्टर्स हैं, जो मैंने अभी एक पॉइंट आउट किया, ये सब जो है एक स्ट्रेस को बढ़ाने के लिए कंट्रीब्यूट करती रहती है. और जब हम इतने छोटे छोटे कम्युनिकेशन में व्यस्त रहते हैं, जिसको व्हाट्सएप मैसेजेस में, ट्विटर में इतने ही लेटर्स दे सकते हो, हम सुनते हैं एक यूट्यूब का भी तो 3 सेकंड सुनते हैं, 40 मिनट का पॉडकास्ट लोग कम ही सुनते हैं, मगर 40 सेकंड का आप शॉर्ट्स डालते हैं तो मुझे बताया गया है कि 4 सेकंड देख के लोग बंद कर देते हैं, क्योंकि लोगों के पास टाइम नहीं है. लोगों के दिमाग में मेरे ख्याल से ये विश्वास जो है हो गया कि मेरे पास टाइम है ही नहीं. तो लोगों ने ये कबूल कर लिया कि मेरे पास टाइम ही नहीं है. अब टाइम नहीं है तो आप रिलेशनशिप कैसे बिल्ड करेंगे? और रिलेशनशिप तब होगा जब आप बैठ के बातचीत करेंगे किसी से, है ना, डिबेट करेंगे, डिस्कस करेंगे. अपने दिल की बातों को आप किसी के साथ शेयर नहीं कर पाएंगे तो रिलेशनशिप कैसे रहेगा? अब शेयर करने के लिए टाइम चाहिए. तो टाइम तो हमारे पास उतना ही है. इतना सारा टेक्नोलॉजी होने के बावजूद टाइम को तो इंक्रीज नहीं कर पाए ना.
सर, आपसे मैं एक चीज़ पूछूंगी. आज हमारी बातचीत बहुत अच्छी हो रही है आज आपके संग, और आप आए, हमें बहुत कुछ जानने को मिला आपसे. सबसे जो मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट हम सर से अभी सुन रहे थे कि दिल की बात, कि आज हम दिल की बात नहीं करते. हमारे टाइम इतने कम है, सभी के पास दिल की बात होती नहीं है. चाहे वो घर पे हो, चाहे वो एक साथ बैठ के डिनर टेबल में हो, चाहे वो बड़े बुजुर्ग के साथ हो, वो नहीं हो पाती है. मगर सर, ये भी तो सच है, टाइम इज़ मनी, ये भी तो हम सुनते हैं. अगर टाइम मनी है तो नेचुरली पैसा तो बहुत ज़रूरी है.
नहीं, ज़रूर वो तो बात है, मगर हम ये भी तो सुनते हैं और सुनते आए हैं कि इंसानियत बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है. अब अगर हम इस बात को भूलना चाहते हैं तो टाइम इज़ मनी को भी भूल सकते हैं, मगर मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि टाइम इज़ मनी को भूल जाओ, क्योंकि ये सब माइक, ऑडियो, लाइट्स, सब कुछ करने के लिए मनी की ज़रूरत है. नाउ ह्यूमन बिहेवियर में एक मास्लो's थ्योरी है, आई एम श्योर यू नो अबाउट दैट. सो मास्लो एक्सप्लेन्ड दैट we are driven by our ungratified needs. जो ज़रूरतें हमारी पूरी नहीं हुई है वो हमें चलाती है, जो ज़रूरतें हमारी पूरी हो गई है वो हमें चलाती नहीं है. तो एंड देन ही सेड दैट देयर आर लो बेसिक नीड्स, जैसे रोटी, कपड़ा, मकान, शेल्टर वगैरह. देन देर आर लिटिल हायर नीड्स, सोशल नीड्स. सोशल नीड्स में आता है जैसे कि रिलेशनशिप्स हो, या पड़ोस वाले ने जो है अच्छी गाड़ी ले ली है, तो मेरे पास अभी भी पुरानी गाड़ी है, तो वो मेरे को बताती कि मेरे पास भी एक अच्छी गाड़ी होनी चाहिए। कंपेरेटिव सुप्रीमेसी चलता है यहाँ पे, मैं उससे थोड़ा बेहतर हूँ, इससे बेहतर हूँ। और उसके बाद जब ये सब ज़रूरतें पूरी हो जाती है किसी के लिए, और एंड दिस हैज़ टू बी एज पर द इंडिविजुअल्स ओन थिंकिंग. I cannot tell you that, oh, your social needs are all fulfilled, you are well off, everything is fine, why do you still go after, run after all these things? No, nobody can say to the other person. I have to judge for myself, and I have to feel that, yes, my basic need is fulfilled, my social needs are fulfilled. Then only, Maslow explains, when lower needs are gratified, then only man can be cognizant about higher needs, which are, say, intellectual needs. मुझे कुछ जानने की इच्छा है, आई हैव क्यूरियोसिटी, आई वॉन्ट टू लर्न मोर, आई वॉन्ट टू डू समथिंग मोर, ओके. और उसके ऊपर में बोलते हैं सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन, कि मेरे में एक क्षमता है, मैं और कुछ कर सकता हूँ. जैसे आप अपना चैनल चला रहे हैं, दिस इज लाइक योर सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन. यू वांट टू डू समथिंग डिफरेंट, समथिंग ऑन योर ओन, फ्रॉम योर ओन कैपेबिलिटी एंड कैपेसिटी, राइट. टाइम इज मनी is related to this. Now, how much money do you need? Okay. There are again 4 words that come to my mind. You need money for fulfilling your ungratified needs. Okay. Now there is another word in English which is wants. You need money for fulfilling your wants. There is third word, you need money to fulfill your desires. And the fourth word, you need money for fulfilling your dreams. Now dreams तो सपने हैं. आज अगर पैसा है भी तो आप ड्रीम्स को साकार नहीं कर सकते हो उसके साथ, तो कुछ और करना पड़ेगा, तब जाके आप ड्रीम्स को फुलफिल करेंगे. मगर अब चारों के लिए अगर आप मनी जुगाड़ में लगे हो तो बहुत ज़्यादा मनी चाहिए. मगर आप कहो चलो ड्रीम्स तो जब करेंगे उसके लिए मुझे मनी अभी जुगाड़ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. डिज़ायर की इच्छा है कि ये भी करूं वो भी करूं, कजाकिस्तान में जाके हॉलीडे करके आऊं, डिज़ायर है. या तो जाके फिनलैंड में जाके मैं नॉर्दर्न लाइट्स देख के आऊँ, डिज़ायर है. क्रूज शिप में जाके मैं घूम के आऊँ, डिज़ायर है. आप बोल सकते हैं नहीं वो तो अभी नहीं करूँगा, 5 साल बाद करूँगा, उसके लिए मनी नहीं चाहिए. तो मनी की आपकी ज़रूरत कम हो गई. अब रहा लड़ाई वांट्स में और नीड्स में. तो डेफिनेशन वाइज वांट्स इज आफ्टर यू फुलफिल योर नीड्स. नीड्स का अगर हम हिंदी वर्ड मैं ढूंढूँ तो ज़रूरत इज आई नीड इट, आई कैन नॉट लिव विदाउट इट.
जरूरत है, उस चीज की मुझे जरूरत है.
बट वांट इज नॉट नीड, वांट इज नॉट जरूरत. वांट इज मैं इस चीज की मुझे जरूरत है, इन चीजों की, मगर इस चीज को भी मैं चाहता हूं, मेरी चाहत है. सो व्हेन वी ट्राई टू हैव मनी फॉर नीड्स, वांट्स, डिजायर्स एंड ड्रीम्स, वी नीड अ लॉट ऑफ मनी, एंड आई डोंट थिंक एनीबडी कैन हैव ऑल दैट मनी. Okay, even a billionaire, they don't fulfill their dreams. They're busy managing their billions. Okay, so at the end of the day, the statement "time is money" is actually very correct, but you have to phrase it differently. You have to say money is time. Your time is limited. You will die once. All of us die once. ठीक है ना? But we live every day. And every day we are waking hours is say 16, 17, 18 hours. कई लोग आजकल तो बोलते हैं मैं 4 घंटे से ज़्यादा सो नहीं सकता हूँ, 20 घंटे फिर भी, और वहाँ पे स्ट्रेस भी बढ़ेगा अगर सो नहीं सकता है तो इसलिए इट इज़ अबाउट एक इंडिविजुअल की खुद की डिसीजन कि मेरी ज़िंदगी में किस तरीके से चलाना चाहता हूँ. एंड दैट इज़ व्हाट इज़ लीडरशिप. लीडरशिप ये नहीं है कि मैं आपसे काम करवा लूँ सिर्फ. लीडरशिप तो असली वो है कि मैं खुद की ज़िंदगी को किस तरीके से लीड कर रहा हूँ. हाउ एम आई लीडिंग माई ओन लाइफ, एंड दैट इज़ अबाउट व्हाट डिसीजंस आई मेक, व्हाट चॉइसेस आई मेक. एंड व्हेन आई मेक चॉइसेस, आई हैव 2 kinds of choices I can make. One, I choose to do A, B, C, and another is I choose not to do D, E, F. And that's how you manage time. If my choice is that I want to, Okay, yes, for sure earn more money because money does buy me certain things. It does buy me a good health insurance. It does buy me maybe a nicer car. It does buy me a nice apartment. But money can't buy me a relationship with my spouse. Money can't buy me a relationship with my children. Why should a 16-year-old jump from a 14-story balcony and commit suicide for the parents who are earning, 1 crore a year? Why? Because the parents did not have time for their child. उस बच्चे के दिमाग में ऐसा कुछ चलता रहा जो वो अपने माता पिता से बोल ही नहीं पाया. माता पिता समझे कि उसके लिए जो जरूरत है हमने पूरी कर दी, उसके वांट्स भी पूरी कर दिए, उसके डिजायर्स भी पूरी कर दिए, फिर उसकी क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मगर प्रॉब्लम थी, तभी वो कूद के अपनी जान दे दिया. हम अक्सर सुनते रहते हैं. ओके, तो क्यों होता है ये सब? क्योंकि वी हैव मेकिंग choices about what needs we have to need money for, what money we need for wants, desires and dreams. But we have to also make choices what relationships we have to manage as best as possible. Okay? For example, do I want to have a good relationship with not only my spouse, but also my neighbor? Do I want to have a good relationship with my colleague? Do I want to have a good relationship with the security guard who every day says, "Good morning, madam," when you walk into your workplace? Do you want to have a good relationship with the waiter who is waiting on your table in a restaurant? Do you say hello to him? Do you ask his name? He's a human being. You can choose to do that. You may choose not to do that also. But the consequences are yours. When I go to a restaurant and I ask a young person who is waiting on my table, "What's your name?" And the guy says, say, "Amrinder." अच्छा, कहाँ पंजाब से हो? उसकी जो स्माइल है वो बढ़ जाती है. मेरा क्या पैसा लगा उसके लिए? I don't need money for that. And that young man probably actually takes care of me and my family or my friends sitting on the table even better. So this is a choice you make. You make a choice, you want money for all these things, okay? Now, Elon Musk is the richest man on earth after Trump got elected. Do you think he increased his happiness? Do you think his relationships become better? With another $15 billion, can he buy better relationships? I don't think so. But I may be stupid, Elon may be smarter than I am. But his phone and my phone are equally smart. I can make a choice, do I use this phone or not? And for what? For example, people have so many contacts on their phones. On Facebook, on Twitter, on I don't know what else, all the social media, right? How many of those contacts do you have a relationship with?
Very few.
And you are spending time on those hundreds of contacts, sending messages, forwarding jokes, etc. and all that. But आपके दिए तले अंधेरा आपके घर में जो है, उसके साथ आप टाइम नहीं बिता रहे हैं, तो ये आपका चॉइस है. दिस इज लीडरशिप. लीडरशिप इज नॉट अबाउट गिविंग बिग स्पीचेस. तो ये जो चॉइस है ये लेना चाहिए इंसान को. और जब कोई इंसान ये चॉइस लेता है, सो व्हेन somebody makes a choice not only to do something, but also to not do something, I think he or she becomes a more functional leader, which creates more value for himself or herself first. And when you do that, when I create value for myself, people around me, I guess, also get influenced by that. ये भी हमने सुना है ना कि you lead by example, right? Now, you don't have to be a CEO of a company, for example, to lead by example. I was a CEO of a company for 15 years, but I used to every day come back home. And I had children, my wife, my mother waiting for me over there. Now, as a leader, am I not influencing their lives? Now, do I make a choice that when I return home, I have to be as focused on those relationships as I am at my workplace or not.
एकदम
This
ट्रू.
is a choice. So these are things that are important when you talk about stress, whether you are in 30s or 40s or 50s, whatever it is, or 20s even, for example. Everybody is very, very well educated today, at least in the society we live in, like in big cities. Everybody is well trained, well skilled, more or less. People who are working, having good jobs, as to the example you took, okay? But are they making choices? Are they making choices to invest in relationships and actually find time for that? You can choose to play, if you're playing even badminton 3 days a week in the clubhouse, in your nice apartment, you can choose to play 1 day less. If you're going to the gym 5 days a week, you can choose to go 4 days a week. You get 1 day more to spend some more time talking to your mother 1,000 kilometers away. Or to your child, or playing football with your child, or caroms with your child, or doing music with your spouse, for example. So these are choices that define what kind of a leader you are, what kind of a human being you want to be. Nobody is bad, okay? But we can always become a little bit better. And that's how you create a life and a living.
ये जो आपके साथ हमारी बातचीत हो रही थी स्ट्रेस लेके, तो स्ट्रेस को कम करने की जो उपाय आपने बता दिया कि ये हम कर सकते हैं, जो हम नहीं करते हैं. हम फोकस जितना ऑफिस के कामों में करते हैं, घर आके हम टायर्ड बोल के हम जो सो जाते हैं, या नॉट टेकिंग इंटरेस्ट इन दोज थिंग्स विच इज़ नीडेड इन दी होम हाउस, तो उससे भी स्ट्रेस बढ़ जाती है.
नहीं, ये दोनों तरफ ही चलता है. देखिए, जो स्ट्रेस्ड है वो ये नहीं कि सिर्फ घर में आके टायर्ड होता है, वो वर्क प्लेस पे भी टायर्ड ही रहता है. कि स्ट्रेस का जो मेजर कारण एक है, जिस तरीके की ज़िंदगी की बात हम कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे एवरीबडी इज़ बिजी विद lot of the social media issues, as well as, very minimal communication and not, good detailed conversations with somebody with whom you have a relationship. इसमें क्या होता है कि एक इंसान के दिमाग में काफ़ी चीज़ें रह जाती है जो वो बोल नहीं पाता है. आप व्हाट्सएप के मैसेजेस में एक दोस्त के साथ, एक कलीग के साथ कितना कुछ बोल पाएंगे, ठीक है ना? आप ट्विटर में क्या बोल सकेंगे कि पता नहीं कितने लेटर्स का होता है, मेरा तो अकाउंट भी नहीं है, ओके? आप फेसबुक में कितना कुछ किससे बोल पाएंगे? आप यू आर बेसिकली शूटिंग इन द डार्क. यू मे हैव 40,000 फॉलोअर्स ऑन योर फेसबुक पेज. हाउ मेनी ऑफ देम यू हैव अ रिलेशनशिप विद? सो देयर आर थॉट्स स्टिल एज ह्यूमन बीइंग्स वी हैव. आवर माइंड इज एन एंडलेस रिजर्वॉयर. Now, almost a majority of these thoughts that we have in our mind, we are not able to share it with anybody. Now, all these thoughts are then occupying our mind subconsciously and sometimes consciously, and that is what leads to stress. So, the one best way to handle a stressed scenario is that to find somebody with whom you can share those thoughts that you cannot share in your social media life or in your workspace alone, for example. Because all these things are transactional, one-way traffic. So you need somebody, not even somebody, you need friends. You need friends, and what do you need a friend for? To send WhatsApp messages and forward jokes? You need a friend with whom you can spend hours. So you have to find those hours. And your friend can be also your partner in life. Your friend can be your 16-year-old child. Your friend can be your mother or father also. Why not? As long as you can have a conversation where you can empty your thoughts, you can share your thoughts, and you can listen to the other person's thoughts. That is how you reduce stress. One of the most important thing is to have somebody to talk to. कोई ऐसा चाहिए आप हर एक की ज़िंदगी में जिससे आप बात कर सके, जिसकी बात आप सुन के आप जवाब दें, वो ऊपर से उसके ऊपर कुछ कहे. जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं, तो इफ़ दिस इज़ डन इन रियल लाइफ, ओके, फॉर एग्जांपल, this creates a relationship. And this is what I think people can easily choose to do. To take out, you don't need hundreds of hours for this. In a week, if you can find something like couple of hours only to speak to somebody about whatever is on your mind, which you cannot share otherwise in workspace or in your social media, then I think you have a better life. You have a less stressful life.
सो थैंक यू सो मच. मुझे आज बहुत जानकारी मिली आपसे बातचीत करके. आपकी एक बुक रिलीज़ हुई थी लास्ट ईयर, अमेज़ॉन में वो मिल रही है अभी भी. जो वेबसाइट लिंक भी आपका है वो भी हम शेयर करेंगे. सर थोड़ा सा बुक के बारे में आप बताइए. इंस्पिरेशन कहाँ से मिली, कैसे आपको बुक लिखना अचानक से लगा कि अब बुक लिखेंगे?
नहीं, पहले तो वो पता नहीं इतनी इंटरेस्टिंग बुक सबके लिए होगी कि नहीं, बिकॉज आई रोट दैट बुक long back. It was published by Penguin or Random House. Penguin, I think 10 years back. Yes, it is still available on Amazon, so Random House still makes money out of my book, which is fine. But yeah, that is a book which is called Ascent, a practicing manager's growth mantra. And I was a practicing manager when I wrote that. And that book for me was more actually about, where I tried to park whatever life taught me, whatever I learned by working as a manager, for example. So most of the people, most of my friends and my colleagues I spent time with in my working days, they were all managers. So I learned a lot, at least for my little life, I must say. So that is what is parked in the book. And yeah, people who are practicing managers, if they spend some time reading the book, I don't know how many people still enjoy reading a book because of, as we said, the social media stuff. We are dealing with only mini bites of reading, one sentence or half a sentence kind of stuff. But yes, that's where I share my experiences. That is where I share whatever I learned, and which I found very valuable for my life. And basis of that is probably who am I today is coming from there, whatever life taught me. So nobody is born with anything but an empty receptacle, and this life fills in a lot of stuff. And I'm grateful for whatever life has taught me. So I'm grateful to my family, my parents, my friends, my colleagues. Everybody taught me something, and I learned from. So that's what the book is about.
So this book is going to help the new generation?
A reader only can say whether it is helpful to him or her or not. But yes, I think people who like to read about others' experiences. See, I have read many books in my life, like most people. I can't say that, I knew all the authors who were writing these books, right? But I did learn a lot by reading books without even knowing who the author was or where he or she lived. But then the point is that to learn, I had to read the book. And sometimes you read a book, say 400 pages. I always used to like fat books because they will not finish too fast then. So, and it's not that, you learn everything from every page and every paragraph, but there is something that stays with you. That's what is called wisdom. So people who have written, they have shared their wisdom through the way they characterize, whether it is novels or it is non-fiction. They share their experiences and their conclusions. And the reader's right is for sure to discard what they find is not fitting their life, or to absorb what they find fitting their life when they can use it. So knowledge for myself is something that I can use. There is a lot of information on the internet we are dependent upon, but information is not same as knowledge. When I can take just 0.000 whatever 1% of that and use it in my real life, that is knowledge. Knowledge sitting on Chatterjee is not knowledge. That's information, for example.
Sir, tell me about your further plans regarding launching new books.
No, I'm not writing. I have my own YouTube channel called The Missing Link with Amit, and I have a nice young friend who helps me with this, doing this podcast on burning topics, and that's at the moment what engages my time as well as my thoughts, and so I'm not writing a book now. I wanted to, kind of engage myself more in doing something more active than just writing. So that is why I became a life coach and a management mentor. What really I enjoy and I like to do, and I think that aligns with the purpose at this stage of my life that I have, which is, so I coach executives, I coach managers, and on one-on-one coaching. And I also consult a few companies overall on management, leadership. But what I love is really one-on-one coaching of managers and executives, because I think that, first there are a lot of challenges, particularly in our Indian society, because we are going through this very rapid change in, the workplace over the last 20, 30 years. Unlike the industrialized world, where they went through these changes over, 200-300 years. So there are a lot of challenges, and I feel that whatever I have learned from life, and I still keep on learning, every time I coach an individual, I learn something new, because each individual is like a new book. Okay, each individual is so unique, for example. So therefore, my purpose is that, I hopefully I influence a few minds, so that, for example, they have less stress, they don't, suffer from burnout, and at the end, I don't know whether it sells or not, but maybe they have a little bit happier life. So that's my purpose. And otherwise, yes, of course, all these things I do for 30 or 40% of the time. Rest of the time, I still am available at my home for my wife. I do biking. Because I don't know, how many more years or days I have to live, but I have to live every day. So I try to fill up my days and live in the present, unlike in the past, probably when I was living more in the future. Now I don't have to plan anything for the future. I have to just see that the next day goes as nicely as it can. That's all to life. Yeah.
Very nice to hear from you, sir. हमने आज लाइफ कोच, मैनेजमेंट मेंटर अमित चैटर्जी से हमने सुना काफ़ी सारे इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट्स ऑफ लाइफ, एक्चुअल जो फैक्ट्स हैं, और जब हम सुनते हैं तब हमको लगता है कि हम ऐसे क्यों नहीं करते हैं. तो हमें लाइफ में ऐसे कुछ करना है जिससे हमारे स्ट्रेस कम हो, हमारे फैमिली जिसको हम टाइम दे पाए, हमारे बच्चे जो मोस्ट वैल्यूएबल है हमारी ज़िंदगी के लिए, उनके लिए हम टाइम निकालें और उनके साथ ज़्यादा टाइम स्पेंड करें. थैंक यू सर फॉर कमिंग टू माई शो.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सुनेत्रा. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपके इनवाइट के लिए. उम्मीद है कि आपके ऑडियंस को हमारी जो कन्वर्सेशन है वो अच्छी लगी होगी.
बहुत अच्छी लगेगी सर, ज़रूर अच्छी लगेगी. वी विल मीट अगेन सर, प्लीज़ डू कम.
थैंक यू.